I hear with my little ear something beginning with a capital T to tune in. That's what I hear. Tune in podcast, episode 12. That's what I hear. Yes, welcome to episode number 12 of the Tune In podcast with Sarah and Harry, where we revert to our tri-weekly special of covering a year in music.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was not forewarned about that introduction, so I apologise on our behalf.
What do you mean apologise? That was a sick introduction.
It was different.
Yeah,
we'll
it was
different.
It was
That's
different.
the point.
All right, fine, whatever.
Okay. Anyway, the theme obviously is a year in music, and the year that I've chosen, because it's my choice this week, the year that I've chosen is 1984, because I'm a bit of an 80s fan, and I knew Harry would have a bit more difficulty picking stuff from the 80s, so I thought I'd challenge him. So yeah,
I mean, it was a challenge that I accepted. I've found some, although admittedly, the first year that Sarah did suggest, I would not have got anything from that probably. So
yeah, you pretty much point blank refused for that year. So I changed
it. We kept with the 80s though, so you know, don't slate me too much in the comments or whatever.
Just
allow it for now.
Yeah. So as usual with these episodes, it's broken down into 3 different sections. So 2 songs that were influential to maybe us or to other future music. 2 songs that are our favourites from that year, and then 2 songs that are more unknown from that year. And then as usual, we have a question/activity, if you like, thing to do. And then we've also got what we've been listening to this week. So without further ado, we'll get straight into it with Harry's list first this week.
Yeah, so 1984 actually is when I looked through like various years or a couple of years in the 80s in music, or just my discography of songs which I really like, I realised that 1984 is probably one of the best in terms of songs which I like from the 80s. But my first influential song is a rap number. It's called It's Like That by Run DMC. This is from their self-titled debut in 1984, and it heralded the inception of what is now commonly referred to as new school hip-hop, where minimalistic beats, which would often consist of just drum machines, would back up the rapper's rhymes, with elements of rock thrown in too. Although this wasn't extremely obvious on the self-titled debut or indeed their next album, but with Raising Hell, which was released in 1986, there were songs on that like Walk This Way, which is obviously an Aerosmith cover, or It's Tricky on that album as well. That obviously, they both had various rock elements involved alongside the drum machines. The song It's Like That, though, is also one of the first hardcore hip-hop songs in that it tackles societal issues in a scathing manner. Although there are sprinklings of hope scattered near the end of the track of being like, you know, don't be prejudiced, you can still continue on with your life and live it how you want to. And so, whilst it is obviously, a lot of the lyrics are quite, not degrading per se, but certainly not uplifting, the end does have that spin on it, which I do really like. A reviewer was actually quoted as saying that Larry Smith, the song's producer, had this sparse beat which was intended for rap, and Run and DMC, the 2 rappers who obviously make up Run DMC, in case you hadn't guessed, persuaded Smith and Russell Simmons to let them have it for a demo take, and from that take, this song emerged. And I know the lines when you hear it through modern ears are quite simple, but back in 1984, this was groundbreaking and unlike most of what had come before, and it provided like a basis for more advanced hip-hop, more rhyming schemes and all that stuff to come along. Like without Run DMC, I wouldn't say that rap wouldn't be in the position that it is now, but it certainly wouldn't be as developed, I think. So that is why It's Like That is my first influential song from 1984.
I agree that it is it was revolutionary at the time, like nothing anyone had really heard before. And it's such a classic now. I think pretty much everyone will know it. But the more that I listen to it, the more simple I realise that it actually is to like our standards now. And also I know you touched on it being, you know, influential to rap now, but I wondered if you could like think of maybe 1 or 2 artists that have Run DMC as a more obvious influence.
It's quite difficult because Run DMC were mostly products of their time. So this is like, you know, this is, you wouldn't put Run DMC's music or the rap rock stuff of the 80s, you wouldn't put that into now, or especially with the rhymes that they have. Like, you would be laughed out the door. However, I know full well, because Eminem mentions it in his song Rap God, he would meet Run DMC and induct them into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So I think a lot of rappers growing up in the 80s, they had that inspiration that was coming from artists like Run DMC. Back then, as I say, rap is, it wasn't basic, but it was in its early stages. So you have to put that into that context. So I do think that there are like loads of rappers who will have been influenced by Run DMC.
Yeah.
But I know Eminem, for one, was definitely one of them.
I was just thinking, because obviously I wasn't implying that you could compare them to stuff now, but there's obviously a sort of journey that rap has been on to get to where it is now. So like, wondered what the next step in rap was that this influenced, if that makes sense.
I think it's like you move on from the rap rock thing into it's kind of a jump, but you then have gangster rap with, you know, NWA, Tupac, Biggie. You know, those are the types of people who would have again been in the era of growing up, like in their teens, hearing Run DMC on Ghetto Blasters or whatever it might be. So that's, again, I could be hypothesizing, but that's my personal take on that front. So my number 2 song, again, it's one that everyone undoubtedly knows, but even though I did have a lot of choice for 1984, I couldn't really think of, you know, songs which I know or like, which are really influential. And I came very close to picking the Ghostbusters theme, because, again, of how iconic it is. But in the end, because all my choices after this are kind of rock or metal, I decided to go with a disco-tinged song in I Just Called to Say I Love You by Stevie Wonder. I know it's basic, I know it's really simple, but I guess it is also influential because it's Wonder's biggest selling song worldwide, as it reached number 1 in 19 countries, and it's the only song of his to reach number 1 in the UK. It's also the 13th best-selling single in the entire history of the UK charts. So it was composed for the soundtrack to The Woman in Red, for which Wonder wrote all of the songs barring one, but people were disappointed in it as it didn't have a Wonder-style groove, and then it passed over into a sickly territory. And I do agree, like, when you listen to it, it is very basic. It's so simple because it's just Stevie Wonder listing loads of events which it isn't on this particular day, although he calls someone to just say how much he cares about them. Although he has stated that it isn't anyone specific and it's meant to be more universal, as he wrote the chorus, for example, after visiting his mother. But an interesting fact, actually, is that in 1985, a lawsuit was filed by Loy Kiate and Lee Garrett, claiming that Wonder had ripped off a 1976 song that they'd written and played for Wonder, called Hello It's Me / I Just Called to Say. But Garrett, who was a childhood friend of Wonder's and actually collaborated with him on a couple of songs, dropped it after a year, and the jury in the end voted in favour of Wonder in 1990, with Kiate losing an appeal in 1992. So, again, nice little random fact about this song, but it's not the best in terms of, like, do I like it? It's okay, but I just think it's influential just in the grander scheme of music that year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you said. However, I probably, because I was close to picking the Ghostbusters theme as well, I probably would have picked that over this, if I'm totally honest. I mean, I know this song, but not very well, because it's not one that really sticks in my mind, per se, because it's quite simple and it's no superstition. However, it was fine.
Yeah, it's the best I can say is that it's okay. Like, it's probably the first song that I've picked for this podcast which I'm not a massive fan of personally.
Yeah, I mean, my question was, how is this actually influential? Because it obviously didn't, I'm guessing, like, by the sound of it, didn't influence your taste in music. It didn't really influence, didn't necessarily influence music going forwards, but I guess it influenced, like, people's tastes in music at the time, because it was so, the evidence is there, like, it sold really well.
Yeah, I guess it is because it sold really well. Like, I think that's probably the big reason why I picked it. And as much as maybe I should have gone for Ghostbusters in hindsight, again, it was just one of the three, and I thought because I had songs which were not similar to it, but certainly of a relatively similar style. I just thought I'd mix things up a little bit. However, there was like a little phase where I did listen to this song relatively frequently when I was a bit younger. So again, it's not like, groundbreaking would say, and I wouldn't voluntarily listen to it now, but I don't think it's been influential to me. I just think it was influential for music that year.
Yeah.
So in terms of basically just chart sales. So again, I'm going on a really vapid reason for it, and I understand this entirely, but that's just my take on proceedings. But yeah, so that is like my influential section concluded, and now we actually move into the favourite section, which of course are songs that I do like quite a lot. And my first song is, I would probably go as far to say it's in my top 3 Metallica songs, favourite Metallica songs that I've heard of all time. And it's For Whom the Bell Tolls. I so struggle to pick a song from Ride the Lightning, the album that this comes from, because it's so versatile, it's brilliant, and it's so well-rounded. I definitely recommend, if you're into like instrumental metal stuff, I definitely recommend The Call of Cthulhu. That's an 8-minute extravaganza which just constantly builds and builds, but it just has a progression to it, and it sounds really eerie and then moves on to more aggressive stuff, and I really like it. But I've gone with the most popular song from Ride the Lightning, as I say, in For Whom the Bell Tolls. So it's Metallica's take on Ernest Hemingway's book of the same name, about the incessant and eventually futile conflict of the Spanish Civil War. And war's futility has been a theme that Metallica discuss in their lyrics quite a lot. So it's obviously got that little exterior connotation to it, and it does have James Hetfield does provide a kind of, not screamy, tortured vocals, but sometimes it does delve into that, which I think, again, works with the theme of the song really well. But the opening guitar riff, you would think that it's actually just from, a standard guitar, but in reality it's actually from the bass, as Cliff Burton, the late former bassist of the band, used light distortion on the high notes. And I didn't realise this until looking it up, and when you hear it now, it does make more sense, but I always thought it was just like a muted electric guitar, but no, it's actually genuinely the bass. And another quirk of the song is that the bell effects used throughout it is actually the drummer, Lars Ulrich, hitting an anvil with a metal bar. There's a nice little quirk for you, but I just love its groove. I love its like 12/8 feel, especially when it changes up the feel in the verses and the chorus. And just the sheer like groove metal, I think it's one of those songs which, again, you just groove along to. And as a sucker for groove metal, I love this song.
It's quite cool, to be honest. I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty cool. However, it felt for me quite repetitive in terms of it just, like, I understand it constantly comes back to a theme, and I get that. But for me, it was too much. And it sort of didn't really go anywhere. It doesn't have to go anywhere. Like, not every single song has to go on this journey. But I feel like for a song with a subject matter such as something quite historical that has a story, maybe it should follow a story and take you on this journey.
I do kind of get it. I do kind of get what you mean, is that it can get very slightly repetitive, but I think for me it only gets drawn out too much at the end of the song. I think the rest of it isn't. I think at the end of the song I do agree with you. I think it does get drawn out a little bit too long. But everything else, I think I would disagree with you on the rest of the song, but at the end of it I do agree with you. It does get a bit too repetitive.
Yeah, I meant sort of towards the end. So that's
Oh,
that's
right, I
fine.
see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
My question, you've sort of answered it in that, but because I was thinking, well, the music itself doesn't necessarily tell the story. It tells a very sort of static part of the story. But I just wondered if the lyrics tied in with the story at all.
I think it's more so that the lyrics tie in with just war being a futile thing as a whole. I think that's what Metallica are trying to get at more than anything, because I know they did this on a song, Disposable Heroes. That title in itself can imply a lot of stuff, in the fact, that essentially all they're being told to do is run out onto the front, completely brainless, not really knowing what they're doing, but go and fight for this cause. I think the lyrics tie into the more general theme of war being futile, but with that link to the Ernest Hemingway novel. It's more a general theme as opposed to, set in stone, this is what it is. Even though there is obviously that implication, the exterior implication of being about the Spanish Civil War.
Yeah, I was going to say, then do you know, you don't have to know the answer to this, but do you know why they picked this title, this book about War One, rather than any other book about war?
No, I don't, but they can, I guess because it's, the futility of it, I guess that's why they went with it, because it's something that depicts that feeling of, war not actually resolving anything and just being, fought by innocent soldiers who haven't done anything wrong, whilst the people who organise the wars are mostly back at home in the offices trying to conduct the war effort. So
Okay.
I think it's more a generalisation of it as opposed to anything else. But I could be wrong, but again, that's just my viewpoint on it. My second one, I think actually a lot of you might know this. It's another heavy groove glam metal song called I Wanna Rock by Twisted Sister. I didn't realise this was released in 1984 until obviously I did a bit of research. And boy, am I glad it was released in 1984 because it's a great song. So the backstory to it is that Dee Snider, who is the lead singer of the band and also the songwriter, he'd only joined 3 years prior. But he was already adapted as the lead singer and songwriter of the band. And he actually wrote this song in like this 45-minute spate of writing a lot of the songs for the album which this comes from, Stay Hungry. He said in interviews that he wanted to combine the feel and drive of Iron Maiden with the anthemic nature of an AC/DC song. And the lyrics are about the psyches of young people who feel under pressure to be what society wants them to be, or maybe their parents or someone like that, just having to conform to all these societal norms, whereas all they want to do is, well, I'll let you guess from the title. And so, it does get a little bit repetitive towards the end, but because, the chorus is just, I want to rock, and then rock as a chance. But again, it's meant to be that anthemic nature from that people like AC/DC provide. And the song was also used in the SpongeBob SquarePants movie in 2004, although the lyrics were changed to be, I'm a goofy goober, although the rock response was left in, and it still works brilliantly anyway. So, yeah, as a result of that, that's probably why, as a massive SpongeBob stan during the early, mid to late 2000s, I wasn't going to not include this song when I found out it was released in 1984. So that is why it is my second favourite pick.
I mean, you can't really compare the Metallica song and this song, but I do prefer it. For to me, I know I do get that it gets repetitive towards the end, sort of similar to the Metallica one. But for me, there was just a bit more. I think it's just a bit more fun, to be honest. That's really why I liked it a bit more. There's a bit more to it. It wasn't so morbid, like.
Yeah, I can see what you mean. It's like, I mean, the Metallica one again is a little bit morbid, but that was just the themes that they were going for on the album anyway. Whereas I Wanna Rock is meant to be, it's meant to be this kind of anthem, this hit where you almost have, the lead singer shouting, I want to rock, and then the crowd just respond in their droves, rock. And that kind of it set the tone for the song as a whole. If pushed, I'd still say Metallica edges it for me, but that's just because, again, I prefer the sound of it, to be honest. Only just.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'd say musically, the Metallica one's better in my opinion, but then I would prefer to listen to the other one just because I acknowledge that is then personal taste rather than actual musicality.
Yeah, Twisted Sister, I Wanna Rock. You'll probably know it, but it is a groove. It's a jam. So, hence why I decided, why not feature it on the podcast, even though it is quite popular. So what isn't popular, though, are my unknown choices, and certainly one of them, which, again, I've been listening to for a while, but I had, again, no idea it was released in 1984, so you can imagine my ecstasy when I found out that it was. And it is the song Scuttlebutton by Stevie Ray Vaughan. So it wasn't actually, it's actually just a deep cut from his 1984 album Couldn't Stand the Weather. Stevie Ray Vaughan, he was, for those who don't know, he was a technically gifted blues guitarist, and this song is the structure of a 12-bar blues, so again, it has that influence there, and a very simple backing as well. But it complements the lead guitar, whose riff is ridiculous. That's all I'm saying. It's kind of like a call and response thing, where the guitar is almost acting as the response. But I remember hearing it for the first time as an impressionable 8-year-old and just thinking, oh my god, this is the pinnacle of all guitar playing. And apparently the style that Vaughan uses is called chicken picking, which means a clucking staccato sound when picked from the strings, which is achieved through snapping the strings on the fretboard and frets by plucking them aggressively. I was meant to ask my brother, who is a guitar player, about this, but then I forgot. So I've got no idea what any of that means, but I'm sure it means something interesting. Unfortunately, Vaughan would lose his life in a helicopter crash 6 years after this song was released at the age of just 36, which is a huge tragedy because, again, we got denied of more amazing songs from this very talented guitarist, but what a legacy, and of course, what a song in Scuttlebutton that he left behind.
Yeah, the guitar riff was incredible. I think one of the best I've heard, to be honest. Just generally. I don't think like it's something I would listen to. It's not like my kind of thing that I enjoy listening to, but I can definitely appreciate the talent. I just wondered, because it's unknown because it wasn't released as a single. Do you think it should have been released as a single? If so, or if not, why?
What a question. I genuinely don't...
Hell yeah, I'm good at questions now.
Fair enough. I don't know, to be honest. I think it's obviously an instrumental song. There's no vocals in it. So you lose that kind of, radio airplay thing of vocals being in the thing where, apparently vocals means hits or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it should have stayed as a deep cut because it's something that would catch a lot of people. I wouldn't say catch a lot of people off guard, but it would certainly be something which would hit you straight away and something you wouldn't expect to occur. Whereas I think singles are meant to be like, kind of not radio friendly per se, but certainly more conducive to as many plays as physically possible. So I think it should have remained a deep cut. If it was released as a single, I wouldn't have said that was a bad idea. To put it that way, because again, I can definitely imagine like a music video being released for it, and it's being played on MTV, and everyone thinks, "Oh my word, what is this?" But then also like it's kind of like a hidden gem in the album, so you listen to it through, and then you think, "Oh my word, what is this?" It's the same kind of feeling, but I think it'd have a greater shock factor if you just hear it like as an audio as opposed to like on the video for the first time. Yeah, that was a great question. It's one of the best you've asked.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. I think a lot of things. The thing you were saying about having lyrics making a hit, is so people sing it and sing along to it, and it's really catchy, and it's constantly being played and constantly being sung, and you can't really do that with this one. So I would definitely like agree with you, keeping it a deep cut. But I don't necessarily think I agree with your statement of saying releasing it as a single would be a good idea. I don't think it would. It could either make or break his sort of career. In my personal opinion, because people could either love it or hate it, and it's too much of a risk to have made it a single.
That's definitely fair enough. I mean, again, you can't really sing along to the riff. I mean, you can try as much as you can, and if you manage to do so, then you clearly have much better. Yeah, you have much better vocal capacity than any of us. But yeah, I do agree. I think it should have stayed as a deep cut, hidden gem on the album, as I say. So
yeah.
And it most definitely is a hidden gem on the album because, again, it's unknown to a lot of people for some reason. I can't quite figure out why. But there you go. So that is my first unknown song. And the second one, we're moving back into metal again. Don't say I didn't warn you. With Iron Maiden. They are a band that I've recently got into. And their album Power Slave, I really liked. And my favourite song from that is the one I've picked, called Aces High. It's written from the standpoint of an aerial ace about to engage in conflict with the Luftwaffe during World War II. And it showcases the gallant fighting spirits which many had in the RAF at the time, both in terms of the lyrics and the kind of driving feel in the music, the fast tempo, the riff at the start, and the guitar working in tandem with the vocals. I think it does a pretty decent job. It kind of has that, again, not flying feeling, but certainly the urgency that pilots in that conflict would have had at this time. Apparently, the singer, Bruce Dickinson, is actually nicknamed the Air Raid Siren himself, owing to his operatic vocal range. He hits a top G on this song, and he's also a licensed pilot, and he's done a few commercial flights himself. I don't quite know whether or not you can link that into this song, but that one could make that claim. And during live performances of the song, they actually apparently play the famous Winston Churchill quote of, we should fight the Germans on the beaches or on all these various places to set the mood going into the song, which I think is quite a nice touch.
My first thought was, he's really sticking with a theme here, with the metal war historical based songs.
Yeah, that wasn't intentional. I just really like the song.
However, they're quite different, and he does have a very impressive vocal range. So my question for you is, I just wondered why you picked this song over other Iron Maiden songs off the Power Slave.
So I think Power Slave, there are a couple of lowlights on the album, but there are also a load of highlights, and I did come relatively close to picking the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, which is again taken from the poem of the same name, and it's a 13 minutes concoction of various styles and various influences. Right. But I decided to go with this because, again, I really like the kind of the brisk, the urgent, the gallant nature of the song, and especially I think the chorus as well. I love the chorus. The vocals just come in with the do or die or whatever at the really high pitch, which I'm not going to attempt here in case your ears start to bleed. And I just really enjoy the feel of the chorus itself. It feels really anthemic, but it matches up with the spirits of the Pilots at this time. So that's why I decided to go with this song over songs from that album. So that is all of my 6 songs blasted out the way with the speed and efficiency of an aerial ace going into conflict with the Luftwaffe. And so now we move on to Sarah's list.
So my first song off the influential part of the list is a song that I guarantee everyone will know. I picked it for a couple of reasons. It's a Do They Know It's Christmas by Band Aid, so the original 84 one.
Do we have to talk about Christmas songs in September?
So I will explain why I picked this. First of all, it's one of the most iconic Christmas songs. And second of all, I'm very excited for Christmas. I'm one of those people who skips over Halloween and goes straight to Christmas. I get excited for Christmas as soon as I come back to uni, get settled in, I start looking at decorations, make my Christmas list. Anyway, so that's why I've been just in a Christmas mood at the moment. I know it's a bit early, but I'll do a little background to it because I know everyone knows the song, so I'm not going to say much about the song itself, more of its influence on other things. So the song itself was written by Bob Geldof, who's from Boomtown Rats and Midge, from many bands, but most famously Ultravox. And it was a reaction to the famine in Ethiopia from 83 to 85. So the Bob Geldof and Midge put together this supergroup they named Band Aid, of the most famous British and Irish musicians at the time. So just example, Bono, Phil Collins, Boy George, Spandau Ballet, Duran Duran, Sting, and so many others. I don't want to list all of them, but those are ones that I just picked off the list for some reason. It's at the time it was the fastest selling single in chart history. It passed 3 million sales by the end of the year, and it was very influential, obviously, to music of the Christmas music of the time. And then there were also other charity versions of the song in 89, 2004 and 2014. So it's literally had an influence on, going forward for charity versions, and also had an influence on other people because it raised money to help people in other countries. So it literally had a out of musical influence, if that makes sense.
I mean, having worked in retail during Christmas time, the songs, I haven't got bored of them yet, but it's slowly creeping up. And I'm not one of those people who listens to Christmas songs in August because I don't see the point in it. This one is okay. It's not one of my favourites personally. Obviously, I'm not going to deny the message and the cause that obviously it's a great idea to do. However, I wanted to get your thoughts on what you think about the claims that the song is seen nowadays as quite patronising. So lyrics such as, there won't be snow in Africa, do they know it's Christmas? I mean, they probably do. So I was wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, so I didn't talk about the song itself, but it got really, really mixed reviews when it was released. So I got a quote from NME basically saying millions of dead stars write and perform a rotten record for the right reasons, which I think sums it up quite nicely. It's not a great song. As you said, it is very sort of patronising. Like, do they know it's Christmas? Like, of course they know it's Christmas. Or, like, that's kind of like a worldwide thing. Like, I don't think those lyrics necessarily should have been used, but the main reason that I picked this song was not for the music or even the musical influence. It was more for the impact it had on the rest of the world and on specifically Ethiopia for this song, but then other charitable organisations in the other songs. But I do agree that the lyrics, maybe a bit choice, you know, a bit like maybe shouldn't have done that now. So yeah, I do agree with those claims on the lyrics.
Yeah, it's just like, you hear it now. I mean, you hear it then and you just think, right, okay, not the best choices for lyrics, and it's a great cause, and I'm not saying don't do this, but I just can't find myself enjoying this particular song. It is a bit patronising, sadly, but at least it raised a lot of money. Which is definitely a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. I sort of wanted to focus on the positives rather than the negatives, but then obviously when talking about this song, you can't really avoid the fact that it's incredibly patronising and not a very good song. I mean, the general consensus when it was released, obviously it's quite catchy, so people tend to sing along, and especially in the UK, a lot of people will know all the artists and be very excited to see them all come together for this. However, yeah, most of the criticism was basically saying it was a rubbish song and not the best use of the lyrics. However, it did do great things.
So we basically both picked one that we are not a massive fan of. Probably the only. How have we done this? But yeah.
I mean, I do love it just because it's a Christmas song, so I don't dislike it. I just love Christmas. Anyway, I will move on from Christmas because I know a lot of people aren't so excited for Christmas as I am. So, my next song, which is influential in a different way, is another song that you will definitely know. It's "I Want to Break Free" by Queen from the album The Works. So this song, again, gonna maybe touch on the music, but not really talk about the music that much, more of its influence, because I see that as more important. And obviously it's an amazing song, but anyway, so the song itself was written by John Deacon, and I think the most famous thing about this song is the music video, as they were all dressed in drag, and a lot of people think that Freddie Mercury put forward the concept for this, but the concept was actually proposed by Roger Taylor. If you haven't seen the music video, which I'm sure you have, but if you haven't, it's like a parody of Coronation Street, and the second half was performed like with the Royal Ballet and choreographed by Wayne Eagling. I think that's how you say his name. Why do I always get the really hard names to pronounce?
You always do. How is this happening?
I know, I don't know. Anyway, so it was well received in Europe and apparently South America. Interesting, as the song became synonymous with fighting against oppression, which I thought was quite interesting. You know, I want to break free from this oppression kind of thing. However, it didn't do very well in America because MTV are the main things that promoted the music, like MTV and other sort of TV networks showing music videos, limited the playing of it. I think because it's quite a conservative time in America, and obviously they were dressed up in drag, and they thought men dressing up as women don't really want to promote that in our country, which is really sad if you think about it now, but you have to sort of put it in the context of the time. And also it might be because they failed to see the sort of soap Coronation Street link, so it didn't really work. But I think the main influence for this is it pushed the boundaries of music and culture and started to normalise things like drag and the sort of stereotypical roles of men and women and things like that, and pushing the boundaries of music and culture in general, which is why I picked this song.
It's not one of my favourite Queen songs, but I quite like it. It's alright, it's okay. Does the job.
Yeah.
I kind of have a bit of a similar relationship with it, like to Another One Bites the Dust. Like, again, it's one of those ones that everyone knows, and it's got that kind of disco groove, which I think Queen were going for at that time.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the wrong thing to do, but I focus more on the musical side than the what it did for cultural side.
Sure.
Because that's just my my brain, and that's how I alert myself to these things. So I wanted to ask what you thought about the structure during the verses, which I perceive to be a 12-bar blues. Do you like its implementation? Do you think it works? Do you think it serves a purpose? Does it change, like, show where Queen were going?
In the verses, obviously, blues music is closely associated with the African American culture, and that obviously links in with the theme of breaking free from oppression. I don't know if I'm digging too deep here, but I just got that from that. So maybe that links to the theme of wanting to break free, and then being used by oppressed groups to fight against oppression.
That is possibly the best answer to any question that we've ever had. That is mental. That is a theory that I would love to. No, obviously we don't know, but like that is something I would never have considered before, and this is the stuff that you willingly listen to for, which you should definitely keep on doing so. It is. It's I can see where you're coming from. It, like, you know, the 12-bar blues is definitely something which is linked. I say linked to it's linked to African American music, and you know, I Want to Break Free has definitely been like a thing which regrettably, because it should never have happened, but regrettably, you know, has had to become symbolic with that cause.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's also why it might not have been well received in America as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the time, Reagan brought in all the evangelical television programs and stuff at that time. So obviously having that massive contrast of showing, you know, very religious, very conservative, traditional values TV shows with music videos such as this, I think America was not ready for that yet. And I don't know if it is ready for it now, to be honest. Like, if you think about what's going on at the moment.
Big up Trump.
Well, I mean, don't. But I know what you mean.
Don't big up Trump. But
I know what you mean. Potentially, this is all speculation. Obviously, at the time, you can see why it didn't do well. I mean, there were probably criticisms in the UK as well, but our criticisms weren't rooted in politics and government. It was just social views. So now I move on to my my favourites. I really struggled, so I want to do a little special mention to one of my favourite songs as well, and it's a song called Easy Lover by Phil Collins and Philip Bailey. However, the song that I did pick was the song Somebody's Watching Me by Rockwell. Sort of ties in with the Halloween theme as well, like Halloween's coming up. So this, I didn't realise, but Rockwell is the estranged son of the Motown CEO Berry Gordy. So it was released on Motown Records. Everyone sort of looked over his talent. He said his songs before this song were mediocre at best, and they weren't really that great until this song came out. Yeah, so this song also features backing vocals from Michael and Jermaine Jackson, which I thought was pretty cool, because I always thought this song was sung by Michael Jackson, because the chorus very much sounds like him, but then I realised that it's not, but it also is at the same time, so I wasn't completely wrong. And the music video to this song references horror films and haunted houses, such as, like, you know, the graveyards and all the floating heads, and it also has a reference to the shower scene in Psycho, you know, the really famous one. And in terms of the lyrics, generally of general paranoia and references to Psycho again and Twilight Zone, so a lot of famous horror and sci-fi type things. But in terms of its links with the music, obviously the minor key helps with that. It's in C sharp minor, and also the sort of creepy synth noises and like semitonal intervals make it sound like a horror kind of song. And a lot of people play at Halloween. That is very synonymous with Halloween sounds, and that's why I chose this song.
Yeah, I was exactly the same as you, because I always thought it was Michael Jackson who sung it as well. For whatever reason, I like this. I like this song. It's got like a spoken singy style vocal from Rockwell, which can work, but I think it works quite well here. And then obviously the chorus comes in, which is alright, but it does go. I think it does drag on way too long. It does drag on a while.
I do agree with you there.
Yeah, it does. I hate to say it. However, my interpretation of it, it's quite like, you know, subtle digs at the general public of, you know, invasion of privacy and stuff like that. But then obviously the sound is very 80s synth stuff. So
yeah,
you might have answered this already, I'm not quite sure. But do you think the message gets hidden under the sound?
So, I mean, in terms of the like official message is just like in horror films, like he's seen too many horror films, so he has the paranoia that there's someone constantly watching him. But in terms of your hypothesis, I don't know if you looked that up or you just came to that conclusion by yourself.
That was a hypothesis of my own.
Okay,
that was
that's
a hypothesis of my own.
It's a really interesting one, and potentially has underlying hidden messages of that. But I think it's very well hidden in that case. No one's really mentioned it, and I don't know if that's because it's not true or it just, the whole thing of it having that sound of Halloween and then having references to horror films and sci-fi. Also, I've just noticed that I'm just singing the song in my head, the little riff in the chorus, it sort of sounds like the Twilight Zone riff. The one's like, it has a little bit of that in it, and I'm only just noticing that now. Sorry. Yeah, but it's obviously very well hidden under these like references and metaphors and similes more than metaphors to do with the horror films and horror symbolisms and like graveyards and things like that. But if they have done that and that was their overall theme, they did a very good job. But I think it's the kind of song that maybe was catchy and people thought maybe wasn't thought about that deeply, so they didn't need to think about it that deeply. So they looked at the very surface level meaning of it. So yeah, but it might have other meanings to it and other influences in terms of subject matter than just like horror films. So yeah, I know it's great to make your own opinions and your own theories on the songs, which you can also do if you listen to the playlist that we make every week on our Spotify account. So be sure to check that out.
So you're doing the plug this week?
Yeah, I thought I'd jump on it. I saw a segue and I went for it.
Fair enough.
Okay, so moving on to my second song of my favourites. I don't know why this song's my favourite. I just really like it. It's probably one of my favourite songs, sort of all time. And it's a song called Dancing with Tears in My Eyes by Ultravox. So again, this is sort of linked to the first song because Midge Ure from Ultravox wrote and got the band together for Band Aid. So this song's very, very much synth pop, new wave style. You know, the class. It just sounds 80s. This song got again was number 3 in the UK and in the top 10 throughout Europe, but failed to chart in the US. I didn't realise what the song was about. The music video is about a nuclear power plant meltdown, and he's driving home with his wife and, you know, having fear that they're going to die from this nuclear power meltdown. And when I was looking it up, I just thought it was like someone being upset but trying to hide that by like dancing and like, you know, having a good time. But it's actually about the anxiety of like, because nuclear war was sort of at its peak roughly around this point, maybe a bit earlier, but there was the fear of nuclear war constantly on, and so the song is about the anxiety of a nuclear war.
I feel like I've heard it before. I feel like it might have featured in like a TV show that I watched, Deutschland 83, although that might also be because it sounds like a lot of other 80s stuff from this time, so I don't quite know which one it'd be. Yeah, it's all right. It's a pleasant sound. Bit mad that again it was only 2 years actually before the Chernobyl disaster. So I did also accidentally do some research. By looking at the lyrics of the song on the Genius thing that Spotify come up with.
Yeah.
Like they have the annotations underneath. So I was looking through that as the song was going through. There was a thing that came up which said Midge Ure said that he didn't like mixing politics and music in 1989, preferring to be more humanitarian. Do you think this song is therefore more humanitarian or political? And if so, do politics and music mix? Because Midge Ure says they don't.
I disagree, and I think they can mix. Pick someone like, I mean, I mention him pretty much every week, but pick someone like Declan McKenna, for example. His songs work really well with the politics and the sort of teenage, early young adult angst towards like all the people in power. However, I do think this song is less targeted at governments and people in power's like impact on a nuclear war happening. I think it's more focused on the fear within the people if that makes
Yes.
sense. So I obviously
Yeah.
agree with, obviously nuclear war is a sort of more political thing, but it's focusing on the fears and the thoughts and concerns coming from the people rather than commenting on how the politics should have been run better, for example. So yeah, I do agree with him in that respect, and I do see where he was coming from. However, no, I disagree. I think music and politics can mix, and music can be a great tool in getting a political agenda or political point across to other people and making it more accessible and more impactful to politicians as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've picked a load of political songs over the last 11 weeks, so obviously I'm also in agreement with that. But again, just playing devil's advocate and being like, well, this viewpoint has been put forward, and so I thought I'd pick up on that and just see what your thoughts were. So
yeah, and also with his him making, basically forming Band Aid, he's obviously, you can tell he has a very much more humanitarian and rather than political agenda kind of view. So moving on to my unknown section, I don't know if the first one is unknown. It's the song Never Ending Story, and again I've got another hard name to pronounce, by Limahl on his album Don't Suppose. This song is so cheesy and so 80s, I just had to put it in. It's so funny. The song was the soundtrack for the film released in the same year about a guy called Bastian Bux. He's a shy 10-year-old who loves to read, and he finds a book called The Never Ending Story and goes on an adventure into the fantasy world called Fantasia, and sort of goes into the book and goes on a lot of adventures in the book. I just remember these really creepy characters in the film, and it sort of scared me a little bit, even though it's a U rating. But it's such an 80s thing. It's so 80s. You have to watch it. It's so good. It's based on a book by Michael Ende. I'm not going to say the title. It's in German.
Die unendliche Geschichte.
Bless you.
I did German for A-level. I should know how to pronounce it.
Okay, good. I haven't done German. I did German for a term in year 7, so I great. So I don't know. And that was written in 79, so it's based on that book. Personally, I haven't seen it, but if you've seen Stranger Things, it's the song that, I don't know the characters' names, but they sing it over the phone. It's one of the young characters. I can't remember their names. But anyway, they sing it in Stranger Things, because obviously that's set in the 80s, and it was very popular in the 80s, so if you have seen Stranger Things, you might recognise it. The song was apparently attempting to distill the whole book into one song. So the lyrics are sort of trying to tell us the story of the never-ending story, and it's really interesting. It's very 80s synth pop, and it also includes quite heavy use of a sitar, and I'm not sure what persuaded them to use that. However, it does sort of add it has this sort of shimmering sound, if you like, and it adds a very mythological sound to it, which may be why they added it, I'm not sure. But yeah, that's why I picked that song. It's classic 80s.
I'm not a fan of this one that much.
I didn't expect you to be.
No. But it's such a shame, because this is written by Giorgio Moroder, who's a guy who is basically one of the founders of Eurodance, of that kind of thing, one of the pioneers of EDM, and someone who's inspired the likes of Daft Punk. He's worked with Madea and Lana Del Rey, or he was going to work with Madea, I don't know if he did in the end, but still, like, he's someone who can transcend the test of time, and it's such a shame because, especially in the chorus, I think it's so poorly mixed, because the vocals just get drowned out a little bit by the backing. How has Giorgio Moroder's done that? I don't know. It's such a shame. And the other thing I had a brief question of, because this song was written and produced by Moroder.
Yeah.
So Limahl and the female singer Beth Anderson, they just turned up and sung it.
Yeah.
What do you think of, like, singers or rappers who don't write their own stuff?
Oh, interesting question. I always used to be quite scathing of it. I was like, well, they're not talented if they don't write their own songs. But you can be a really talented singer and not be a very talented songwriter. And I'm not saying this song was good in any way. I'm using maybe other examples here. And have your songs written for you and, like, tailored for your voice and written well. Maybe something that you couldn't do, and then you sing it because you're a talented singer, for example. Yeah, so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. You don't have to be able to sing, you don't have to be also a talented songwriter. It helps if you are, and it's nice. You just have an extra talent, an extra, string to your bow or whatever. I used to be very scathing of it, but I've definitely changed.
See, I'm quite scathing towards it, only because, like, if it's a rapper, for example, you want personality, you want authenticity in the lyrics. And if it's a ghostwriter, for example, that's just absolute no. I don't like that at all. But again, I can kind of see with singers, because again, like, you know, a really stupid comparison, but like opera singers, they don't write their own stuff. They just sing whatever they think. Or indeed just musicians as a whole. Like, I do write some stuff, but like I don't write the stuff that I normally play in terms of my recital. But I think because it's a more commercially oriented thing, I would kind of hope that they were both. It kind of just comes off to me as that Lamal is like, doesn't really have much going for him.
This song is a bad example to use in terms of what I'm about to say, because I don't think there's much emotion behind it. But as you were saying before, about opera singers and just singers in general, and also musicians, we don't write our own things that we play in recitals and performances unless you're a composer. And you can still get that emotion, and you can still get the message across, and you can still have that sort of your personality coming through in your performance, even if you didn't write it, which I think studying music, playing more music, has made me more aware and more appreciative of people who don't write their own songs but make it sound like they have. That's very impressive. Obviously, people like for this example, write a pretty well written song. Like it's not badly written, it's just badly done. However, I like it because it's just catchy and it reminds me of... It's nostalgic, even though I wasn't around in the 80s. It's nostalgic to my childhood because I did watch this film growing up. And it's just great to sing along to. But not necessarily well done, as you pointed out. Okay, so my final song, or should I say piece, is another Studio Ghibli. I know, I keep bringing up Studio Ghibli and I'm sorry, but they have just some of the best music. This time, it's the opening titles for Nausicaa, The Valley of the Wind. This is a science fiction epic set 1,000 years after the 7 Days of Fire, which is an apocalyptic... What happens? It's like a post-apocalyptic film, if you like, set in the Valley of the Wind, and it follows the princess of the Valley of the Wind called Nausicaa getting rid of a jungle full of mutant insects. And again, this music was written by Joe Hisaishi, as I've mentioned before. It's quite similar to a lot of Studio Ghibli soundtracks in terms of it's very magical and whimsical and very sort of sweet and lovely. However, this also has a more serious post-apocalyptic feel to it, with the use of like futuristic feel, with the use of more electronic instruments, as well as it's a bit more dramatic with like sort of orchestral hits and stuff. And then it sort of towards the end goes into more of a Studio Ghibli type feel.
Yeah, I mean, I picked up on that as well. It kind of seems to me as though it's inspired by the synthwave sound of this era, especially at the start and at the end. Although I did actually do a bit of research, and it turns out it's not actually Studio Ghibli officially. It was the film which inspired Studio Ghibli to be formed. Although many people do consider it now to be a Studio Ghibli release. Yeah. So I'll let you off on that one. But I was wondering what you thought, like just in terms of the music. Like, why do you think that Studio Ghibli's music, even if you think it does sound like it has a kind of similar atmosphere to it, why has it stood the test of time?
Maybe these films, aside from maybe the really famous ones like Spirited Away and My Neighbor Totoro, they're sort of very niche. There's sort of they have a fan base of people that tend to watch like all of them and love them. I wouldn't necessarily say I fall into that fan base. I haven't seen all of them. I just enjoy the ones that I have seen. And I think within that fan base, they stand the test of time because obviously that's what they like, and they're all very similar. They go along with the animation very well, and that's what that fan base tends to like. I don't know necessarily why some of them became more popular than others. Like, I'm picking Spirited Away because I think I mentioned it before, and that was like arguably their most popular film, and it hit more into the mainstream. I think the film stood the test of time. I don't necessarily think the music did in turn with the film, but not by itself.
Yeah, it's not a standalone thing.
No, it goes with the film really, really well, and I guess that might be why it stood the test of time, because it's with the film rather than by itself. that's the end of my list for this week. Now we move on to the question / activity based thing, which Harry will explain.
Admittedly, it is my idea this week. So again, please do come in with your questions because we value any of them related to music genuinely. But I decided that we could go with something a little bit different this week, and it's this word association game. Okay, I've seen it online and I've done it on a previous radio show. So basically, you come up with like a musical thing or something which is associated with music. So it'd be an artist or a genre or a competition or anything like a festival. And the other person has to say the first thing that comes to their head once the prompt is said. It is going to be Sarah's turn to go first.
So yeah, I've got one for you, and it's disco.
Panic.
Yes. Nice.
Like I can again. I don't want to go Panic at the Disco because it's just so basic. But that was just the first thing that's come to my head. And again, I've been listening to Panic at the Disco a little bit over the last little while, so I guess that's now stuck in my head. Thanks, Sarah. God. So that's now got stuck in my head. So I'll say my first one to you,
Okay.
which is Daft Punk.
The harder, better, faster, stronger. They did that, didn't they? That's the first thing that comes to my head, and I don't know why. That and the other thing going to my head was it's a robot one, and it's on Just Dance. Daft Punk. Is that instrumental?
What a banger!
It's Daft
Oh,
Punk.
what a banger!
So that one, so Daft Punk and the first one that came to my head was harder, better, faster, stronger. That one.
Yeah, that's a great song.
But then I suddenly was
That
like,
is a great song.
ooh, yeah, there's a Just Dance one as well. Yeah, so I'll give you another one. ABBA.
Mamma Mia, here I go again.
Okay, fine.
I know, again, basic, but I'm not an ABBA fan at all. I just want to say Mamma Mia, get it done out of the way with, and then move on with my life.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't realise it was such a touchy subject for you.
Oh, it's very edgy. I can't deal with it. Okay. My second one to you, Glastonbury Festival.
Muse. I think I saw a Muse set at Glastonbury Festival. I saw it on the TV. I think I saw a Muse set. Or Lizzo was the other one. I think that was a Glastonbury one. There might have been somewhere else, but I don't really... All the festivals, to me, I've never been to a festival, so all the festivals, like Leeds, Reading, Glastonbury, they all sort of blur into one. I definitely remember seeing, I think it was Glastonbury, on the TV, and I saw a Muse set and a Lizzo set. And that's all I can remember. So, I said Muse first. My final one, I'm just picking things that I like, so my final one is Disney.
Our Town.
Oh my god. Of course it is.
Well, sorry, what else am I going to... Listen, great song. Listen, I'm not the Disney guy. I'm not the Disney guy here. Like, I don't mind watching Disney. I'm just not as invested in it as Sarah is, of course, because I don't think anyone I know is as invested in Disney as Sarah is, by a long way. But again, I know it's such a basic answer, but that's just the song which I associate with Disney the most because I've mentioned it before how much it means to me personally. So that's just my own shtick. And
I just wondered what you were going to say.
Well, there you go. You got your answer. So my third and final one for you is System of a Down.
Chop Suey.
Of course.
Sorry, I don't know them like crazy well. I know a couple of songs and I know their most famous ones. So obviously I'm going to pick that one. It's just a great song, isn't it?
It is a great song. I love that. I love System of a Down as a whole. So I thought, why not bring that back up again? Just for the sake of it. Yeah, Chop Suey is a great song.
Yeah.
And again, we can open ourselves up to like questions as well as things like activities of various things. So if you have any suggestions, then just send them through our way by however means, even by carrier pigeon if you want, and we'll do our best to answer them on the podcast if you want.
Yeah, I'm all for the return of carrier pigeons, so...
Oh yeah, obviously. Let's bring it back to the good old days of 1874.
Yes. Well, I mean, they used carrier pigeons in World War One. No, doesn't have to be that.
Well, I just picked a random year.
Sorry.
I didn't have to be that year. It might.
Sorry.
I don't know. Stop picking apart the holes in my statements.
Sorry. Bring back carrier pigeons.
Anyway.
Okay, right. That's it.
Yes.
That was the message. We now move on to the final section this week, which is what we've been listening to this week and what we think you should too. Potentially, or maybe not.
Yes. So my list is heavily electronic based, but that's just stuff I'm listening to this week. So my first song is I accumulated a nostalgia playlist a couple of weeks back, and one of the songs on it was Language by Porter Robinson, which I hadn't listened to properly in a while, and it's just such a fantastic song. I mean, it's obviously Porter Robinson like trying to do the EDM, like it's his style, but then also like modern EDM melodic style as well. It's just such a fantastic song, and so I've been listening to that a lot over the last week. My second one is a song called Red Card by Frisco, featuring Skepta, Jammer, Jamie, and Shorty, otherwise known as the members from Boy Better Know. So they've featured for the second time in consecutive weeks. The beat on this is absolute fire, and the verses as well, apart from maybe one of them, again, absolute fire. Love the chorus. It's so well mixed, and it's just, like if anyone's into like that kind of, old school grime feel, which I most definitely am, then you will love this song. My third one is back into like kind of more melodic drum and bass with Dreamland by Fox Stevenson. So he's an artist who I've known for a little while, and it's nice. It's a nice little contrast of the kind of more expansive melodic style that Fox Stevenson does bring with his own vocals as well and songwriting, and I just really like the sound of it. To be honest with you, I think it's definitely one that if you're wanting to get into electronic music, I think Fox Stevenson is definitely someone who you would start with, or maybe not start with, but certainly one who, if you want to get into more melodic side, he's definitely someone who I would recommend. And my final one is Fresh Out the Oven. This is probably one of the newest released songs that we will have ever talked about in terms of when we do a podcast, but it's another drum and bass song it's a brand new release from the kings of drum and bass themselves, Pendulum, with Driver. It is their first song in about 10 years, and it's weird because at the start of it, it's got like this guy resurfacing from the waters, and the last song on their last album, Immersion, the song called Encoder, finishes with this kind of drowning sequence of this guy. So a lot of people have speculated that this is kind of a link between the two, where there's one guy who's drowning, and then on the song Driver, all of a sudden, this guy is resurfaced and starting brand new. So a bit of a weird conspiracy theories to think of, but again, I can see the link, and it's kind of got elements of all the Pendulum albums on it, to be honest, and it's a driving song. It drives me on, and it's certainly one which is very like thumping, and one which I've been listening to a lot since it came out. So that is my list.
I will give that a listen because I'm very excited to hear new Pendulum music. I mean, for those who don't know, I really like Pendulum, and I don't know why. I don't like any other like drum and bass, anything like that. But I love Pendulum, and I always have, and I just don't. I think it was a family thing. We used to listen to it as a family, which is very strange when I think about it. Anyway, we'll go on to my list. Now, the first song I've picked is a song called Roses, Lotus, Violet, Iris, and it's by Hayley Williams again. So it's on her sort of new in inverted commas album, the one that I spoke about a few weeks ago. And it's just one I didn't really listen to because it wasn't released as a single, or like didn't really just feature in my mind really. And now I've listened to it now, and I really, really like it. It's just, again, it's an alt indie kind of song, and it has her classic vocals on it. It just is a great song. There's nothing else really to say about it other than it's just, if you like her music and you like her new album, or like her new singles off her new album, I do recommend this one that you might not have seen. The next song I've picked is a song called Want You Back by a group called Joan. I really like Joan. I have liked Joan's music for a while, and I follow. They're one of the only artists that I sort of follow and keep looking at new releases. They're quite upbeat indie pop, but this song seems to be a lot more drum. I mean, obviously, electronic drums, not actual real drums, but it seems more drum heavy than the other songs. But it's still a really, really good song, and it still has their sort of classic sound, and I really, really like that. And the final song that I picked is a song called Disco by, I'm assuming, is a band called Sub Radio. Never heard of them, haven't heard anything else by them. This is sort of a feature with the music that I listen to. However, it's quite indie pop. It gives me old 1975 vibes, but if they were more poppy, which just sort of sounds nothing like 1975, but you sort of get what I mean. It's just a really good song, and it has sort of, I mean, it's called Disco, so it's a good sort of dancing song. And that's, so that's what I've been listening to this week. And with that comes the end of this episode.
Yeah, so that is our trip down, actually the first year which neither of us was alive for that we've ever discussed on the podcast. And obviously next week we return back to our standard themes of whatever it is. I mean, it's my choice, so it's only going to be very interesting, I can tell you that much. But really hope that you've enjoyed this week's... all right, sorry. But we really hope that you've enjoyed this week's episode. Thank you very much for listening. And until next time...
We'll see you then.